kind of towards the end of 8th grade. And let's just say a lot has happened since then. So that summer, between 8th and 9th grade, I was what you might call on fire for Jesus. I was just loving anything to do about like learning about God and all that goes along with that. So I was loving like worship music and learning and memorizing scripture, and it was amazing. But there was a problem. I started having thoughts that made me question who I was and why I was here and what God was using me for. And at the time, I thought I was crazy for thinking like that, because nobody really talked about this, and it was even taboo, especially in a Baptist church. And those thoughts were thoughts of suicide. And I've grown up in this church my whole life, and I just thought, I was like, I'm crazy. There's no way, like, how can I even think about this? So I pushed it down, didn't want to face it. If I did think about it, it wasn't real. That's not true, don't do that. But I pushed it down, and that sent me into a really bad place for about 2 or 3 months. I got where I could not, it didn't feel like God was there at all. It felt like when I would pray, I was talking to the wall in front of me. It felt like when I would read the Bible, I was just reading words on a page. It had no meaning. There was no, it felt like the Spirit was not there at all leading me. But I knew from being in church all my life that God was there, because He does not leave. That's a promise that He gives us. And if I couldn't feel Him, that was fine, because I still knew He was there. So finally one night I was talking to my friend about this. Finally, this was November 20th, so this has been going on for 2 or 3 months now. And I was talking to her, and I finally admitted to myself that I had a problem with my thoughts. And I finally that night just went to God in prayer, and tearfully, very tearfully, and I just cried out to Him. And for the first time in a while, I felt Him again, and He was there. And so I made a deal, and I said, well, I'm not going anywhere until you take me, because He's not going to leave me here longer than I have to be. That's how gracious He is that He'll take us when it's our time. And but after that, I didn't want to share that story, because I was still ashamed of it, really, because again, nobody really talks about that. And and especially in my family, we don't talk about our feelings a lot. We're pretty tough, I guess. But anyway, I had a friend that sang with me last time I was up here, Avery. She called me one night, and we were talking about, started talking about thoughts or something. And she said, well, when I think about stuff like that, I just get depressed or whatever. And I was like, yeah. And so then, kind of out of the blue, she was like, Amelia, I'm going to tell you something, but don't tell anybody else this. Like, this is a big secret. And she told me how she actually tried to attempt suicide. And the only thing I could think to say, was don't tell anybody else this. And then I told her my story, what I told y'all. And so that was December 7th of 2023. And since then, I've learned of so many other people around me that are my friends, even adults, that go through the same thing. And they also think they're crazy and they can't talk about it. And then I've seen myself, me sharing my story, that has been like, I'm so glad you told me that, because I don't feel crazy anymore. I don't feel alone anymore. And so that's why I wanted to share it with y'all today. I know I've known y'all most of my whole life, but I just felt like that was something I wanted y'all to know. And I feel like it's good to get out there, because I don't think it's talked about enough, and it's a very real thing. So last Sunday, I made a TikTok. I know that shows my age. But anyway, I made a TikTok, and it was kind of thanking all the people that I've told for listening and being there for me when I needed them most. And the song that I used was Why Me by Chris Christopherson, because I think that second verse just sums up my whole testimony and why God let me go through this trial. because it wasn't fun, but I'm so glad I went through it now, because now I have the story to tell, that all that he has done. So I'm going to try to sing for y'all now, and if y'all know it, sing along. It's an old country